Hello, everyone. I think it's technically 5:30, so I should probably get started. But I guess I'm going to introduce myself. That's cool. Um, okay, so thank you for coming to this talk about managing open source hardware communities. For those of you that don't know, I am Straithe. You can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet under this one name. And I've been the community manager at Great Scott Gadgets for about 3 years now. And that has been during our entire time of doing a crowd supply campaign. I've also done 15 years of like education, project management roles, community service roles, customer service roles, and user support roles. I've done a lot of community building, like all up and down the stack. So this talk is like a combination of all my own experiences, education, and like disclaimer, may not work for you, but hopefully you leave today with like a couple tips that can help you with your own communities or understand your own role in your communities. And when I talk about community, there are so many different ways that word can be interpreted. Some people think it's only end users. Some people think it is like only people who develop the product. Like it can be weird. But in this case, to me, community is all parties that are involved with and impacted by any sort of project or team that you are on. And I think that impacted by is really important because there's often silent people who are part of your community that don't know until they're impacted. So this is just like a partial list of some of the people we will be talking about today. I'm sure you all have other people you would list in your communities. And this is actually secretly just a communications talk, because that's all community management is learning how to communicate with people effectively and in a way that both you and them appreciate, because that can often be a disconnect, which we'll see as I tell you some stories throughout this talk. And as I go, please interrupt. If you have any questions on the early things I say, you're definitely going to have questions on the later things I say. So please interrupt at any time. I do want to hear from you, because this is a community and we all manage it differently as well. So I want to hear everyone a little bit, so don't be shy. Step one, which I'm pretty sure all of you know because you're all super smart, is know your channels. And in this case, channel means something like Instagram. If you're going to post on Instagram, you need a picture. You're not going to get anywhere without a picture, basics. Same thing with YouTube. You're going to need a video. You're going to need to learn how to do all these different mediums. And there's so many different ways to learn. It's a lot. And this kind of like, we don't actually learn much here, except there's too much to do. But this is like the first real thing you need to know as a community manager is disable features you don't use. There's nothing like when you're just starting out on an open source hardware project. Say you've posted your project on GitHub, and all of a sudden people start leaving you messages on GitHub community. How many of you know what GitHub community is? Yeah, one. It is their forum that is baked into GitHub that people can leave comments like as a forum on your GitHub repository. No one wants it. I haven't found anyone that uses it, but it was a shock when I got an email like from someone who'd left a comment on GitHub community on one of my repositories. I'm like, who is this? Why is this? What is this? What's happening? And then I had to spend, a couple days figuring out, did every repository have this feature? Why did they have this feature? How do other projects use it? Is it something our group needed to be doing at Great Scott Gadgets to make sure we're supporting our community properly? Does anyone use this feature at all? And no one uses it, not at all. I'm not even sure if maybe we were in a beta and got it first. But the easiest solution to deal with this and make sure our community know we cared about them was to disable the feature so they couldn't even contact us this way, like period, just not gonna use it, not gonna talk to people with this feature. And this also happens with things like Instagram. I don't check Instagram messages. They're mostly spam, but same thing. It's gotten to the point where disable the feature if we're not going to use it because people get really upset if you don't respond to them. And that's kind of a really big thing when you're dealing with communities. We're going to jump ahead 2 slides, is setting expectations. There is nothing harder than being a community manager when people expect a response within 24 hours, because that's what big companies like Amazon do, or any of the other ones. And you're just like one person handling like 12 forms of communication, and you're exhausted and also trying to code and also trying to do design work and everything else. And people like, you didn't respond to me, I want a refund from you immediately. And it's like, okay, you contacted me at like 5 p.m. on Friday. I don't start work until like 7 a.m. on Monday because I still overwork, but like you gave me 0 minutes in work hours to respond to you, and that's no good. Especially when people expect you to respond on weekends, even though you're still like a person. I want to go out and like sleep in, or go to a picnic or something on the weekends. I don't want to constantly be doing work. And so like setting that SLA in your like README on GitHub is huge. Nope, that way. Next one is creating templates. You will soon learn, if you haven't already, that when you do customer support, especially as a community manager, and you get complaints about like, where do I buy your product? And you get that across every single form of communication you have, and there's one response to it all the time. It's not as personal as you'd like, but being able to create templates really, really helps. Like, thank you for emailing us. You can find the link here. That's all I got. So that is probably the email I get the most. I get about, for Great Scott Gadgets, which is a small company, about 150 emails a day. Most of them are spam, about like 100 of them, of the 150. Of the remaining 50, probably about 20 are, where do I buy your products? So 20 at 360 days a year, that's what, 700 or 7,200 emails that are, where do I buy your product? And then we have Twitter, we have Mastodon, we have Instagram, we have Discord. It gets to be a lot. And when you only have one community manager, you want your templates. This also goes for other things, like you can get support here. That's probably another 20 of those emails. That out of the last 50 there is, where do I get support for this product? You also need those templates. It gets to be a lot. Talked about setting expectations. Oh, and this is also for support. There's a thing that happens a lot where, for all of you who've done open source hardware and sold it, you know that you end up getting cloners. And people expect you to provide support for the clones. Not just for your stuff, but they're like, I bought this thing from this person, it does not work, I demand you fix it. And it's like, sorry, can you provide me a picture of the hardware that you have? And then you see it, and it's like, that is not my hardware, I don't know what components on it, you're gonna have to contact whoever you bought it from. So that's a way to set expectations as well, is like what type of support you provide. And this is something we definitely missed for a while. And a learning point is when we start getting a lot of issues, and we're like, why are these all coming up right now? And then you find out the cloner is using a part that doesn't do half the things you need it to do, especially when you're dealing with radio devices. And it just did not meet our expectations, did not meet our clients' expectations, even though they weren't technically our end users, they were end users of our project. So setting expectations about where people can get help is really, really important, and to think about early in your project. Question?
For your thing about templates and emails, would you recommend, like, I don't know, divorcing that into separate email addresses, or like what kind of system do you have set up so it's easier to manage support versus like other types of inquiries?
Okay, so the question about how many email addresses do you have to manage everything in the one company? I do split them out as much as possible, but that does mean I get the same spam emails to 8 email addresses instead of 1. So what I've learned is definitely keep careers separate, because otherwise we have a company that people just really want to work for us, and that's part of like me knowing we're doing our community well, is people are excited, and like whenever you have an opening in the next 10 years, please email me back. And I'm like, I can't keep that in the general email inbox because I'm going to lose it, so I keep it in careers so it's separate. We've also got reseller support is a separate one because at Great Scott Gadgets, we don't sell directly. We sell through other people. And they're part of our community. We have to keep them happy. And so we keep them on their own separate email address so they get priority support. And then we have our general email. I get so much weird shit there. And you have to be prepared for that too. I had no idea how many weird emails, when you're dealing with radio specifically, how many like, my wife's dog is hacking my cat. And you're like, I have questions. So everything is split out in its own thing. We've also got like an admin for all of like our apps, and like every time I'm kind of like, this email box is getting a little too hefty, I'll like add another account as we need them. And that's, I think, a really important part of being a community manager is being extremely flexible. There are some bigger companies that are too rigid and they end up missing people. They end up missing the people that could do the most for them. So yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah, so email is another thing when you have so many channels you can get contacted on. Like we have Twitter, don't have a TikTok yet, but I've been threatening it. We've got a YouTube, we've got a Mastodon that actually somebody else made for us, which showed me I didn't manage that properly, because after, the enshittification of Twitter, a lot of people had moved to Mastodon, and we were like, do we make one? Do we bother? But somebody made that choice for us by making us an account, using the company email address, so I had immediate, control over it, and I was like, well, I guess they really, really wanted that, and I think there was 3 people following it before I even got access to it. I'm like, it's got to be one of these 3. I never figured out exactly who set it up, but that's part of community management as well, is getting your namespace everywhere, because if you don't do it, someone will get it, and in this case, it was somebody nice, but it could have been really bad really quick.
Like a takedown notice, since it's not the person, they're pretending to.
Yeah, so we could have done a takedown notice, and that's something we actually struggle with a lot too, is we have a lot of cloners who have decided to use our trademarks in their web pages, in their products and everything, and it's actually another topic. Plan your trademarks early. This is something we ran into with Syntheon, which is the new product from Great Scott Gadgets, done through Crowd Supply, coming out next week. It is a USB protocol analyzer, but its original name was Luna. How many cats do you know named Luna? How many products do you know named Luna? And normally when you're thinking about trademarks, you have to not clash in your own space. So if there's software named Luna, that's kind of close to hardware, but you could probably get away with it. But if you have other hardware named the same thing, you're not going to get your trademark. You really need to diversify as far as you can. And so we spent probably about 4 months trying to come up with a new name. And then you search it on the website, on the internet. You search it in different languages on the internet. You search the trademark database. You search the copyright database. You search everything to try and find where this name might exist, especially porn sites. Great place to check if your product is already on there. And we spend months trying to get a good trademark. So when you start out a project and you think, I should just call it something cute like Star Badge. It's like, how many exist? Do you want to be associated with them? Are you happy if your thing is never found because there's this instead? So yeah, you plan your trademarks and it makes it a lot easier to do a takedown notice when your lawyer's like, look, you actually own the trademark. You can actually get someone to take something down. And that's something we've had to learn, especially in the last year where there's been a lot of work towards that, which is helping us with our relationship with cloners because we let that go too long. So there's some stuff there. Another thing with managing your community and keeping it healthy early, this is one that means a lot to me, is curate your comments. If you invite somebody to come speak on your YouTube channel, TikTok, whatever, and there's a shitty comment underneath, delete it. There's no question. Immediately delete it. Because A, the chances that, like, I've had shitty things said about me in comments where, like, oh, I hate this person's voice. It's not fun to be the recipient of a message like that. And if it's another company that controls the video and they're like, but the engagement, my dude, one comment is not gonna drastically change your engagement. And then you're driving away your interviewee because they're never gonna wanna work with you again. And you're actually like, that is a specific toxic thing we do in this community a lot is if somebody is leaving a comment that is real mean and is not constructive in any way, don't leave it up. Even if it's about you and you're like, oh, I should maybe have thicker skin. No, if somebody's making you feel bad and like, your haircut sucks, delete the comment. No one else needs to read that either because they see how you let people treat you badly and they will jump on that as well. And it'll get worse and worse. And you think it's not bad at first, but like, go read a big YouTuber's comments and how often bad things are said about them and how much it hurts them, and like talk to them outside of like the maker area and you hear how upset they are. So like, don't wait 10 years and have shitty comments. But like at Great Scott Gadgets, I love reading our comments. They're so nice. Like every video, everyone's like, we love you, so good. Can you like tell us what that part is in that video? But I still love you. Like, it's so good having deleted all of the like really mean comments about like, you're all idiots. Like, who's that helping? You okay? Do you need therapy? Can I send you a snack? Like, curate your comments. It makes everyone feel better, and it makes the platform you're on better. Like, how many people just don't read YouTube comments at all, right? Most of you. And it's because they've let it become a toxic place. The people that put up videos let it become a toxic place. Don't let that be your other environments. And this includes Discord as well. We've had people come in and say, oh, your products are shitty. And I was like, okay, can you send us a picture of the product? Oh, it's a clone? Sorry, we can't help. Go talk to your cloner. And then we delete the comment because it's not helping anybody to see that. Same thing like, I can't figure this out. I hate everyone. I'm going to do terrible things. No, delete it. It also helps when there are situations where on Discord, there are rules about what can be said, whether you set them or Discord has already set them. Use those rules and tools to your advantage. Like, if somebody starts talking about something illegal, be like, that's against Discord's terms of service. You can't talk about that here. And that will often help quite a bit. And if you want to make sure something actually happens there, you can right-click report, and then you don't even have to deal with it. And that means that they're actually tracked across the whole platform for being a shithead. It's not just your job to deal with it. Which brings us to use available tools. There are so many people who put so much effort into making tools to make community management easier. Like the block button. Man, that button is so fun. There are so many times where, you get someone that you want to give support to, and you're like 20 messages deep, and then they just keep finding things that have nothing to do with their original issue, and they keep drilling in, and you're like, how can I help you at this point? And they just keep saying terrible things, and they get just more belligerent, like getting help was not their original goal in the first place. This is common for many people. Not so much with my community because I work really hard, but sometimes people just need to be blocked, and that's okay. You don't owe anyone your time. You don't owe anyone your effort, especially if you're an open source hardware creator. Like, you have circuits to build. You have LEDs to make friends with. You don't need the people in this specific case. And this is something we really need to learn at Great Scott Gadgets sooner. We've had HackerF for 10 years, which is our flagship product. We've had cloners forever. We still haven't put out a clear statement about cloners. This is something I've been working on for my 3 years that I've been here. And like, Cloners are great. Some of them really help people get your hardware if they cannot afford it. And it still feels good because you're helping enable people to learn things they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Yes, the quality's worse. They need to know the quality's worse when they buy it, that they're not getting QA, that they're not getting support, that they're not getting the same things if they're actually buying the thing you do. I don't have the money or time to support every clone out there, and that sucks. But that's probably the thing we've done the best at, is at least deciding that we're not going to directly provide support for every clone. That took 3 years to figure out. So if you figure this out early in your hardware process, are you okay with cloners? You kind of have to if you're going to do open source hardware. But if you're selling it and trying to make a profit, where does your support line blur? What do you require people to provide you to give them support? How do you provide support through your resellers, if that's a path you go? And just have this clear opinion so you know, your community knows, your resellers know, because it's kind of weird when somebody's like, hey, someone's selling this knockoff Hacker F. I'm like, yes, I'm aware. I've been aware for a few years. And every week there's this one guy who loves giving me updates on the latest clones he's found. I'm like, thanks, buddy. I appreciate the notice, but there's nothing I'm going to do because we're kind of okay with them. Again, no clear opinion, but do better than I do, please. Talked about the trademarks. Third-party add-ons is another one. If you sell open source hardware and you have specific pin headers that people can put stuff into, and their hardware is not regulated to work, or is not properly QA'd to work with your hardware and constantly breaks your hardware, do you offer refunds? You have to figure this out early. Are you going to give people new hardware because somebody's third-party hardware broke yours? Or are you going to tell them, you're SOL, I'm not going to help you? And how does that affect your community? So again, think about this real early. This is a really important lesson. If somebody contacts you and is really angry, or they give you a PR that you're not sure if you want to integrate, don't wait 5 years to respond. It makes the situation worse. Every single day, it makes it worse. It hangs over everyone's head, especially if you're on a team. And it makes it really difficult to get on with your day because you're like, should we merge that PR today? Do we like that PR? Is that something we need to have? And you flummox over it forever. And then you make that person in your community feel bad because they wanted to take part in your community. And I think contributions are one of the biggest things a community member can do. It's time, it's effort. They usually have to learn a new system, maybe sometimes learn a new language, and they're probably doing it out of some form of love, even if it's misguided. So if you don't take action and merge things, that's going to be a problem. But in another sense, this is a good thing, not taking action, when somebody's being really confrontational. If we get back to that, example of someone who keeps yelling at you for no reason or is doing a deep dive on how much they hate you for no reason, just let them spend their energy. Don't respond, but also make it so you can't see the messages. Either block them, throw them in a folder you don't look at, make sure somebody else opens it or reads it for you just so the notification goes away. Because not taking action is an action, and hopefully over time they realize how much you don't want to speak to them. They're not entitled to your time. It's good. Which comes to protect your time. I love you all. You all do amazing, cool projects that take so much time, and I don't think I've ever heard one of you say, I'm bored, what do I do next? That's not a thing. You all have limited time. So when somebody comes to you and is like, I have a project that I want to sell. I'm going to make a ton of money off of it. Can you give me mentorship for free? Gotta make a choice. And most of the time, I recommend protecting your time and learning the word no. I know too many of you say yes to things when you just say, no, I need a nap, which is what most of you need. But this is one of the really hard ones to learn. I know when I came in as community manager, there were too many times where my team was saying yes, and your team and other people on your project, including your contributors, will often take on too much, and you have to help them too. And you are part of your team is there, and it's not only looking out for yourself, but like everybody in the community. Because if you have one person that's constantly railing on something and no one else gets to make a contribution or say anything or be involved, you're doing a disservice to everyone. You're making your community potentially more toxic because it becomes a one-person show and they're trying to take like some sort of leadership role in the community that's not being naturally given to them, and it can cause a lot of friction. So protect your time the best you can. This is the one. It's really hard for me to learn. When you're a community manager or, CEO or whatever role you give yourself in your company, it is hard to handle someone who's having a bad day if you're having a bad day yourself and do not have the tools to deal with it. And if you haven't ever had really good therapy before, it's like somebody handing you tools to do your job. It is a form of training for how to communicate with other people, for how to deal with your own emotions, for how to get through the day. And no, you don't have to talk about everything deep. Sometimes it's like, I miscommunicated with this person. I thought I was supposed to do this, but they wanted this instead. And you can talk about that for an hour and every nuance about it with your therapist who will give you the tools you need. And it's so useful in everything to do with open source hardware. Whether you're talking to a reseller and you can't communicate and you're having a bad time, you can use tools in therapy to be like, okay, you know what? Thank you for sharing your feelings. I need to understand you a bit better. Can you repeat that again using different words because I'm struggling to understand you? That is a very practiced phrase from therapists that I go to often. But adding this to your schedule is not only good for the community management side of things, but just dealing with the struggles of open source hardware all of the time. I recommend it. Okay, on that note, who here has been to therapy? Yes! Oh my gosh, that's so good. I'm so proud of you all. But that one's less tools I can actually use. When it comes to protecting your time, to go back to this one, there are tools for that. There's Calendly. I don't know how many of you have had interviews through that, but you can also, if you're a constant helper, decide how much time you have available in your week to support people, put it on your calendar, and once it's full, there's nothing you can do. You've already scheduled it, it's done, there is no more space. That is a tool to help you in your community management. This one, another thing you can do is, no, we already talked about that one enough. The trademarks. Have any of you registered your own trademarks for your open source hardware projects? Okay, we've got a couple. That's good. For those of you that don't do this, talk to a lawyer early. While they're cheap and don't have a lot to work on, if you know what you want to have, you can often file stuff on your own, but they'll do all the checks for you and make sure your trademark's good, help you submit the trademark documents in all the countries that you operate, because it's not just the country you're in, it's every country you sell to. So that's important too if you monetize your open source hardware. And lawyers, yeah, the sooner you get them, the cheaper they are. It's kind of great sometimes. Yeah, I think that's most of what I have, and we are at the half hour. So does anyone have any pressing questions that I did not answer?
You are one person straddling 12 different platforms. How do you decide which one to focus your limited time on, or which ones?
Ooh, I love that question. For that one, what I recommend is making a list of all the different platforms you have. I'm just gonna put this up. Make a list of all the different platforms you have, and then put them in priority order based on your own mental health. I find email the easiest. So that one goes at the top. And that's usually where we get most of the business requests, people requests. Like that's a really good catch-all. So that's kind of first to see like what the climate of your day is going to be. From there, the next thing I always go to is Discord, because most of our company operates on Discord. We have a public Discord for everyone and a private Discord for the company. And so it is my job as community manager to make sure I'm watching the public Discord, because no one else in the company has to. And we make that very clear that they do not have to participate if they're not in the mental space to. I always have to, because that's my job. So I will curate all the messages and bring the ones over that need attention into our private Discord and be like, how do we help this person the best that we can? So email, Discord, and then I like Instagram, so that goes next, but I try not to have too many messages on there, so at best it's a comment. Then we have YouTube, because that's where we put all our educational content, so and that's how you go. You list them all out. Know which formats you work best in. Some people work really great in TikTok. Some people love videos. Some people work best over text and only want to write. Some people are really into graphic design and they just want to make pictures. So if you're a community manager and have a preference, or just like a maintainer and have a preference, you can choose mental health order. That's fine. But what I do is, I list them out. And over a while, like every 3 months, I look at my process and see where it's failing and readjust based on which messages am I not getting to. Have I ignored Twitter so long that it needs to bump up for a month? So being flexible, again, is really important. Any other questions?
You guys probably have a lot of open source contributors. How do you incentivize them or keep them engaged to want to keep doing stuff for you?
Sure. I love contributors. They're some of my favorite people because they come up with things that just make everything better for the whole community. Like, no one on my team likes working with makefiles. Like, who does, really? But that is part of our process, and there's somebody who's like, I am really, really into makefiles. They make me really happy. Can I redo yours? And I'm like, absolutely. How can I support you? And I think that's like the biggest question you can ask constantly of your community is, how can I support you? So that's part of how we make some people into like what we're doing, is we provide specialized support for their niche projects. Right now, that's kind of me. I'm not great at the niche support because I'm not as deep into the projects as our engineers are, obviously, who spend all day in like every single piece from hardware to like web app. But you try and provide it. And if I ever need help, you ask the team and they do it too. But other things you can do to support people are just like make them feel part of the community. So I have stickers I send out. We also have the free stuff program where I send out a free piece of hardware every month. We haven't sent some out in a while, but that's because I'm currently working on mentoring people through building a good project so I can send them out the hardware they need to finish that project. So we're actually doing, like I'm doing this mentorship process where I'm helping people where they're like, I want to use RF to do stuff. And I'm like, okay, what stuff? And so that's been a 6-month process, which is why I haven't posted that in a while. But the hardware free stuff program really motivates some people as well. We've also got like, I'm working on other incentives like pins and stuff to send out, but mostly it's just they like participating because we're there to support them. We do cool things. We want to see them succeed. I like promote people on our web pages, on our social media. If they're like, hey, I did this cool thing with your product. I'm like, fuck yeah, like tell me everything about it. Send me the full email. I'll write a report. I will like get everything out there. How can I support you? And just, again, that question. You have a question here?
Hi, yeah. We've been working on a product for the past like 2 years or so and sort of getting ready to sort of build in a community. I think for me, I have a background as a community organizer, so I think part of me is thinking like, how do we make sure that the values that we hold are being upheld by the people who start joining our community? Like, how do you model that, I guess? Because I'm trying to understand that a bit more.
Modeling behavior is hard. It takes a lot of emotional fortitude. So one thing in the Great Gadgets Discord that we do is, like, gendered terms aren't really cool. Like, if you say, hey, guys, I need help. not okay. We have a lot of like women and non-binary folks in the server, so we do enforce gender neutral language. But me, being like the most visible female on the team, always being like, we don't use guys here, is really emotionally tough because people are like, oh, you're only doing that because you're a woman. And I'm like, I'm doing it because I care about people, because I want everyone as part of my community. And if they feel othered because people are using the wrong language, not cool. And I've explained that enough times in the server that I'm not the only person saying it anymore. If you do it enough and say that is not welcome here, that is not welcome here, you will get your regulars who come in all the time supporting you and doing part of the work. And that is one of the great things I love about having a healthy community that you've modeled your behaviors for, is if you do it often enough, they know you're going to come in. If you haven't been on for 20 minutes, like, oh, I got this. And they're really excited about it. But I use codes of conduct on GitHub, Discord, everything. People have to agree to it before joining the server. Same thing on Instagram. I'm like, here's our code of conduct. It's on our website. But this is how I expect you to treat me everywhere. And if you don't do that thing, we don't get to talk anymore. So having things explicitly put out there about how you expect yourself to be treated and everybody else in your community makes it easy, because then even the people who are just joining your community can be like, but the thing says, and that can really help. So give people the supports they need through written word, and then just every day model the behaviors, and like have your team, if you have a team or just you, participate in the public spaces as much as possible and talk to each other. So like if you have the official count say something, you can have one of your engineers come in and say, hey, I'm an engineer here, this is what we do, and have someone else come in and say, yeah, I like completely support that, and I'm also doing that in this role, and like have your whole team be part of it, right? So it's not always behind a corporate brand, and I think that's one of the great things about open source hardware. Like, we know who does it because you have to publish all of your like stuff to be open source. They know who's a part of it. You can like pump up your team members if you grow to more than one person, and like constantly share that out. I think I'm supposed to stop, but like if you want to stop recording, I'll still hang out and talk. But yeah, I know this talk was like a little different from what was posted on the agenda, but I hope you had fun and maybe learned something. And I really like hope we can all like talk a bit more and keep working on this community together as a group. Thank you all.